Do y'all have that friend that just gets you? That just gets you. Like that friend that you can just be real with, that friend that just can be honest with you, that friend that understands you. Can you show a little love if your friend is with you today? We're the besties in the room. We're the besties in the room. I love it, I love it. So, for anyone here that might have answered no, that's totally fine, because what we're gonna be talking today about is how to be real, how to be really real, how to tell between the friends that are going to be real with us and the friends that we're not too really sure about. And I've got them in 2 separate categories, so it's easy to remember, super easy to remember. And we're going to use Instagram as an example. So here's the thing, you go and you open up Instagram. Any Instagram fans? Okay, are we more Twitter people? Are we more Snapchat people? Are we more, okay, cool. Cool. Awesome. So say we're going on Instagram and we wake up in the morning. Friend group number 1 are going to be the people that go ahead and they open up Instagram, they scroll through the feed, they see you and everything, maybe they like your picture, maybe they tap that they like it or something like that, maybe they share a comment or 2, but they don't really know anything past the picture that you've seen, right? So that's gonna be friend group number 1. Friend group number 2 are going to be the people who probably took the picture for you. This is going to be everyone that is behind the camera, everyone that knows what your angles look like before you post it, everyone that knows what filter you put on before you even put it on there. You probably send it to your friend to figure out which filter should you put on there in the first place. And they're probably the ones, if they're a really, really good friend, they're gonna help you kind of write a caption to go along with your photo as well. And I like to call these friends unfiltered friends, because they know you before the filter. They know you at your bad angles, they know you at your bad lighting, they know everything about you, whether it's a really good day or whether it's a day that's not so great and we don't really want to talk about it. And the way to kind of separate between who are our unfiltered friends versus the ones that maybe are a little bit more filtered is being consistent. That is probably the best bit of information and advice that I can give you as far as figuring out who are those friends that we can trust behind the camera. Who are those friends that we can trust because we can rely on them, because they are consistently there for us. If you want to see who's going to be a friend that you can keep around for a long time, check how they consistently make you feel. They say actions speak louder than words. I fully believe that consistency speaks louder than actions. Do they make you feel better about yourself every time they see you? Or do you feel a little bit worse about yourself every time they see you? Do you feel that you can tell them something that's really personal to you? Or do you feel that maybe I can't tell them something personal because the last time one of our friends said something personal, they went and they spread it around the entire school? So you want to take a look at what is something that someone is doing consistently. And I promise you, that's going to give you just a little bit of an insight on who are people that you can really, really trust behind the camera, in the back stages of your life, in all of those little details there. Well, when I'm thinking about a friend that I absolutely trust, one friend that really taught me what an unfiltered friend was like, someone that showed me that I could be real and that I could really be myself or anything like that, was a dear, dear, dear friend of mine, and her name is Alina. Alina is absolutely gorgeous, she's absolutely fantastic, and she showed me so many different things. First of all, she showed me that not only was she going to be consistent to me, she was going to answer my phone calls, she was going to be there for me. If we wanted to hang out or something, she would totally be there. And the other thing too is if I was doing something that wasn't too great, Alina would make sure that I was consistently doing the right thing. But the best thing that Alina did for me, and this was the greatest thing that any friend could have taught me ever, and I'm so serious about this, Alina taught me that not only could I be consistently real with her, because she would consistently be real with me, she also taught me that I could be real with God, which was something that I didn't really understand. And to be completely honest, when she was teaching it to me, I didn't really think I really cared that much, to be honest. But she showed me that not only was she going to be real with me, but that God could be real with me and I could be honest with him about so many different things. Because Alina was unlike any other friend that I knew, because she talked about God as if she knew him, knew him. Like the Holy Spirit was like some best friend that was driving in the car with her all the time. It was a little weird. And then she would talk about God as if every time that she was going through something difficult, he was like the physical shoulder that she could cry on. The crazy thing is she would refer to Jesus like he was her boyfriend. Funny story is actually one year for Valentine's Day, she didn't have a Valentine. She goes to work. There's a big bucket of chocolates and gummy bears and everything, and a bear this big, and it says, Happy Valentine's Day, love Jesus. And I was like, wait a minute here. How does that work? How does Jesus have your number? How can I go on a date with that dude? Because he sounds great and his dad sounds amazing. But anyway, I was like, how do you get this close to God? And I can't make those kinds of things up. I was like, things like that would happen for her all the time. And she was so close to God. And I've been raised by pastors. And I was like, how is that you know him this well? And I don't know him this well. I want a bear. Like, how can I do this? And I watched her so closely, and I was like, what am I not getting? What secret ingredient do I not have? And the more that I watched her, the more I realized that Alina was painfully honest with God about every single thing that she went through. If there was something that was really, really good, which is fantastic, she would tell him everything. If there was something that was a little more difficult, she would tell him every single details that if I hadn't been listening to her prayers, I wouldn't have known that about her. And she was my best friend. And I was like, how can you be so honest? How can you be so real with God? I'm just not understanding. And the great thing about Alina is that she was consistently available to help me with any questions I had about God. She would always invite me to church. She would always invite me to small groups. She would invite me to concerts. She would invite me to watch certain videos with her and things like that. And if there were any questions I had, she was always open to talk to me about it. And so when I was kind of asking her, how is it that you get this close to Jesus? She told me about a story and a part from Jesus' life, which ironically happens to be the part of Jesus' life that we're going to take a look at today. Go figure. But she loved this part of his story because when I asked her, she said that it helped her understand how much Jesus understands her. And I was like, what does that mean? It was like a weird inception moment there. What does that mean? And she said, it helped her understand how Jesus understands her and what she goes through. And so I was like, okay, this Jesus guy sounds kind of cool. I guess I'll listen to his story. Tell me more about him. So the part of his story that we're going to be talking about today, the part that my dear friend told me about, is going to be in the book of Luke, and we're going to be in chapter 22. And we're just going to pay attention to one specific verse because there's a lot jam-packed in this verse. A little bit of background information. This is right before Jesus is about to be turned over and eventually crucified, and the rest of the Easter story comes together. So he is about to go through the worst possible thing that anyone could ever go through. And he's just feeling, just that feeling where someone's just in your stomach and is just twisting it around just for fun. It's that feeling where you're walking into the classroom and you know there's going to be a test, and it doesn't matter if you've studied or not, you still feel the worst aching feeling in your stomach. It's that feeling that you're walking into the lunchroom and you're kind of nervous because you just had a fight with your best friend and you don't know if you'll be able to sit with them in the lunchroom or not. And you might be worried that you're the only person that's going to be sitting by themselves in the lunchroom today. It's that feeling that when you're going home, you feel like this is finally going to be the day where I can walk into the house and everything's going to be fine. And then something tells you, no, you know what, you're just kidding yourself, because already as you reach for the handle, you hear people yelling on the inside of your home. It's that feeling of dis-ease. It's that feeling of discomfort. It's anxiety at its absolute maximum. And Jesus is feeling this at about 1,000%. And so in this moment in Luke, Jesus decides to go and talk to God in private. And he's talking to him, and he says this to God. He says, Father, if you're willing, take this cup from me, yet not my will, but your will be done. And there's two really huge sections in this verse. The first part, which I think a lot of us might not realize if you've heard this story before, but when I read it again and I heard it through Alina's eyes, I was like, wow, this makes a lot of sense. The first part is that Jesus does something really difficult and admits that he's going through a hard time. And sometimes the most difficult thing is to admit that we're going through something hard. And sometimes we might try to hide it. Sometimes we try to cover it up from our friends. And if we're covering it up from our friends, of course we're going to cover it up from God, because if we can't tell our closest friends, how on earth are we supposed to tell God? And you might be feeling like you need to hide it for several reasons. It can be that you feel embarrassed about where you're at. Maybe you're dating somebody that you shouldn't be dating and you feel embarrassed about that. Or maybe you feel like you're a burden. Maybe you feel like if you tell your friends that you're actually going through something really hard, that you're going to be the one that dampens everyone's day, that you're gonna be the friend that now everybody has to worry about. Or maybe it's even worse. Maybe you don't want to say that you're in the middle of something really hard because you've told someone before that you went through something really hard and nothing's changed. And so it feels like, what is one more conversation going to help? How is that going to help anything? But here comes the second part of the verse. The first part of the verse is that Jesus admits to God. He's very, very honest with God. And Jesus could easily just be like, yep, I'm just gonna go and get crucified on the cross and come back about 3 days later and I'll be perfectly fine. But no, he admits that this is something really difficult. And because he's real with God, God instantly gives him a peace of mind. He instantly gives him peace. It's just the sake of a comma. It's one brief moment, and God is able to give him peace so quickly that it's almost like that first part doesn't even matter. And it's amazing because when Jesus is real with God, when he's honest with God, painfully honest with God, God is able to give him real healing. He's able to give him a real solution. Just like if we go to a doctor's office because we're sick and we give them fake symptoms, they're not going to be able to give us the right things to make us feel better. So when we're real with God, he's able to help us with a real solution and with real healing. And I was only able to see it this way when I was able to really understand it through my friend Alina's eyes. And this kind of gets to the second part of Alina's story, because when Alina was reading this, she really understood what Jesus was going through, because she was about to go through a really difficult part in her life. She was about to go through something that was going to completely change her, and she was about to go through something that was just really, really hard, and had been asking God for years and years if there was any other way that she could go about it. To explain, Alina found out that she was being called to be a professional prayer warrior, if you will. And there are different kinds of professional prayer warriors around the world. There are some that go all around the world. There are some that help in different countries. There's some that help in their state. There's some that help in their community. And then there's some professional prayer warriors that just stay in their church and pray consistently without any distractions, because they're warriors. They're fighting for somebody. They're fighting for something. And Alina found out that she was being called to be that specific prayer warrior. So what that means, I'm not gonna cry, but what that means is that she'd have no cell phone, no internet, no social media, no connection to any of her friends, and no connection to her family at all for the rest of her life. So all of those great plans that you make with your best friend to graduate together, to live in a house down the street, to know each other's boyfriends or girlfriends, whatever, to talk about life, to talk about how much you love things and how confused you are, and to dream about having kids that grow up together and end up being best friends just like you two are, Alina was going to have to give that up to follow God. And I was going to have to give up my friend for God. And that was a moment that was so painfully difficult, because I had to admit to God that I was so angry at him for not letting me be with my friend, for not letting me be with my best friend. And I felt so angry. I felt that God was taking her away. I felt that I wasn't going to have any friends anymore. I felt so lost. I felt so confused. But then Alina started to become more and more calm. And I was still freaking out. But Alina started to become more and more calm. And at the height of me freaking out, she tells me, Imani, this is how God has helped me. This is the healing that God's given me. And she says, I'm going to a place where I'm going to pray consistently for the people that feel forgotten, for the people that feel that other people are forgetting them, and for the people that feel that they're not worth remembering. I'm going to go pray for them. And I have to do it day in and day out, and I have to do it without distractions, because a minute that I spend not praying is 1 minute that someone could be vulnerable, and there's people that are worth protecting. And as a little side note, if there is anyone, or if you know anyone that feels like everyone's forgetting you, or if you feel like you're not worth remembering, there are so many people that are fighting for you that you don't even know. And there is one person who knows you better than anyone will ever know you, and he's already fought for you. And he'd do it again. And so, yes, thank you, girl, with the amen, come through. And knowing that part of her story, it just kind of helped, because when she was honest with God, he was able to give her this healing. And then when I was honest with God, and I was very honest with God, I was like, listen, jotting down notes. But when I was very honest about God, he was able to share with me through her the same kind of healing. And it's funny because God will send little translators in your life just to give you kind of a confirmation that he's still there, and that when you're real with him, he will give you a real reply. And so to kind of wrap up, I have 2 quick little points that I hope you're able to take away from today and me and my best friend's story. Is that number 1 is that if we are real with God, he will be real with us. And the big part of this is that being real doesn't mean you have to feel pressured to be real. Doesn't mean you have to open up every single part of your life in this immediate moment. It's great if you do, but God will never force you. God will never force you to come to church. He'll never force you to memorize a verse. He'll never force you to memorize a certain passage in the Bible, or even come to small group or anything like that. But when you are ready, God will meet you there. But he's never gonna force anything on you. So the moment that you feel ready and you feel like you're comfortable enough to express to him how you're really, really feeling, he's already right there waiting for you. Already right there waiting for you. And the last thing is this, is that when we can be real with others, it encourages others to be real with God. The great thing about this is that I don't believe that you can tell Jesus' story without sharing someone else's, because Jesus was so good at looking for the people who felt that their stories weren't worth anything and would call them out by name and say, hey, I want to hear your story. Tell me all about you. And so I feel that it's really important to listen to everyone else's story. And because of that, Jesus told his story to Alina, and Alina told his story to me. And now I get to share part of his story with you. And it's just gonna go on and on and on. And so my last little thing is that I don't know where you are, but I would like to encourage you to be really honest with God about where you really are. Maybe you've talked to him before, maybe you haven't. Maybe you only do it at church. It's totally fine. That is just between the 2 of you. And again, God didn't want us to do this alone. So you can talk about it with a friend if you want to. You can talk about it with a small group leader. You can talk about it with any person that you trust, those people that are unfiltered friends that you can have behind the camera. But again, I would like to challenge you just to try. Let's pray together. Dear God, I want to thank you so, so, so very much that we have the amazing honor of being able to share our lives together and to share our lives with you. Thank you so much for bringing me my dear sweet friend And thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to share a bit of our friendship together, just in the hopes that it'll come back to you and that people can see that you're not as far away as they may think, and that you're always wanting to hear from them and always wanting to be close to them. We love you so much for never giving up on us, and we're so thankful for you. In Jesus' name, amen.